Tonight we begin with a story that's not just about crops and commodities, but about the very foundations of global trade and trust. It's a story shaking up dinner tables and economies worldwide. U.S. corn shipments are being turned away at international ports, creating a ripple effect that's impacting everyone from farmers in the heartland to consumers across the globe. For decades, American corn was a global staple, a reliable source of feed, food, and fuel for nations around the world. Now that reputation, built on decades of consistent quality and supply, is under threat. Container ships loaded with U.S. corn, once welcomed with open arms, are now being denied entry, facing rejection at ports from Asia to Europe. This sudden shift is leaving farmers and exporters scrambling for answers, desperately seeking new buyers to take the corn that was destined for other markets. These aren't isolated incidents, a few bad apples in an otherwise healthy barrel. Instead, they're part of a growing pattern, a worrying trend that suggests a deeper problem within the global corn trade. Major trading partners, countries that have long relied on U.S. corn, are now enforcing stricter import protocols, scrutinizing shipments with unprecedented rigor, and they're citing reasons that go beyond simple trade disputes or protectionist measures. The core of the issue involves complex questions of biotechnology, evolving consumer trust, and the fundamental rights of nations to set their own food safety standards, regardless of international pressure. Hundreds of thousands of metric tons of corn are affected, sitting idle in storage or stranded at sea. This disruption is sending shockwaves through the already fragile global supply chain, creating bottlenecks and uncertainties at every stage. Exporters are now grappling with unexpected costs for storage, rerouting shipments, and navigating a complex web of international regulations. But while the exporters face logistical nightmares, the financial burden ultimately lands on the shoulders of American farmers, the very backbone of the nation's agricultural economy. Farmers who meticulously planned their year around projected global demand, investing time, resources, and labor, now face a landscape of uncertainty and the very real threat of significant financial losses, jeopardizing their livelihoods and the future of their farms. Industry leaders and government officials are racing against the clock to fully understand the scope of the rejections and to open constructive dialogues with the affected countries, seeking a path towards resolution and renewed trade relations. With every rejected ship that turns away from its intended destination, the reputation of U.S. corn, once synonymous with quality and reliability, takes another damaging hit in the global marketplace. The immediate challenge, a critical and pressing need, is to urgently find new markets and alternative buyers for the rejected grain, preventing further losses and mitigating the immediate impact on farmers. But the long-term challenge, the truly daunting task, is to rebuild trust with international partners and adapt to a global market that's becoming increasingly discerning, demanding higher standards and greater transparency than ever before. The golden age of unquestioned U.S. dominance in the corn market, a period marked by consistent growth and unchallenged leadership, is now facing its toughest test yet, a trial by fire that will determine the future of American corn on the world stage. The stakes are incredibly high, not just for the individual farmers who are directly affected, but for the entire U.S. agricultural sector, a vital pillar of the American economy. The world is watching with bated breath, observing how America responds to this unfolding crisis, scrutinizing every move and decision. Will the U.S. adapt to these new realities, embracing innovation and addressing the concerns of its trading partners, or will it stubbornly cling to the past, ultimately losing its hard-earned place at the top of the global corn market to more adaptable and responsive competitors? The answer to that question will shape the future of food and trade for years to come, influencing global agricultural policies and impacting the livelihoods of countless individuals around the world. The story is just beginning, and the next chapter promises to be filled with challenges, opportunities, and profound implications for the future of American agriculture. We see these shipments being turned away, containers sealed and sent back. What's the underlying cause? What's triggering these rejections on such a large scale? The primary culprit behind these rejections is the presence of unapproved genetically modified organisms, or GMOs. These are strains of corn that have been altered at a genetic level. Consider a new GMO corn strain, one that has received the green light for cultivation and consumption within the U.S. However, this very same strain hasn't yet been cleared for import in key international markets, including the European Union and various countries in Asia. The approval processes can vary significantly from region to region. Many of these countries operate under strict zero-tolerance policies, meaning that even the slightest trace of an unapproved GMO within a shipment is enough to trigger a complete rejection of the entire cargo. This situation is further complicated by the gap between the regulatory timelines in the US and those of other nations. This difference creates a window of vulnerability, where corn that is perfectly legal within the US cannot be legally exported to certain markets. The challenge is compounded by the difficulty in preventing cross-contamination at grain elevators and storage facilities, which leaves exporters in a precarious position, constantly at risk of accidental contamination and subsequent rejection. But the challenges don't end with GMOs. Increasingly, some countries are also raising the bar in terms of quality, demanding corn that is not only free from unapproved GMOs, but also cleaner and of a more consistent quality to better suit their food and animal feed industries. This convergence of stricter regulatory demands and heightened quality expectations places U.S. farmers in a difficult position. On one hand, they are encouraged and often incentivized to embrace new technologies and innovative farming practices. But on the other hand, the very same advancements can inadvertently lead to the closure of vital export markets. In essence, the global food system finds itself at a critical crossroads, where the drive for innovation in one part of the world directly conflicts with a more cautious approach in another. Finding a resolution to this complex issue requires more than just scientific advancements or trade agreements. Fundamentally, it's about bridging a widening philosophical gap concerning how our food should be cultivated, regulated, and distributed across the globe. Ultimately, the choices we make today will shape the future of international agriculture and global food security for generations to come. As the U.S. faces rejections, Canada is stepping in. Canadian corn exports are booming with major new deals signed in Europe and Asia. Canadian farmers have focused on non-GMO or internationally approved GMO varieties, making them a low-risk supplier. International buyers, wary of U.S. regulatory headaches, are willing to pay a premium for Canadian corn. Canadian exports to the EU have surged over 200% in the past year. The Canadian government is actively marketing its corn as reliable and high quality. This isn't just a temporary win, it's reshaping North American agriculture. More Canadian acreage is shifting to corn, and investment is pouring into infrastructure. Canada's strategic choices are paying off, and its corn industry is on the rise. The shift in corn markets, a complex interplay of supply, demand, and global trade dynamics, starts at the farm, where decisions about planting, growing, and harvesting ultimately shape the market landscape. U.S. farmers focus on maximizing yield, pushing the boundaries of production to meet global demand. This is achieved with the latest GMO seeds and large-scale monoculture, creating vast fields of uniform crops. This approach delivers high output, resulting in impressive harvests and substantial contributions to the global corn supply. But it relies heavily on new technologies, and these technologies are now causing trade friction and raising questions about market access. In contrast, Canadian farmers with a different approach, especially in Ontario and Quebec, have carved out a unique position in the market. They have been slower to adopt new GMO traits, prioritizing other aspects of production. There's a strong market for non-GMO and identity-preserved crops, driven by consumer demand for transparency and specific qualities. These crops are carefully segregated and command a premium, reflecting their value in the marketplace. Canadian crop rotations are more diverse, contributing to a more resilient and sustainable agricultural system. This supports soil health and sustainability, ensuring long-term productivity and environmental stewardship. These practices create a product that appeals to buyers who are increasingly discerning about the origins and qualities of their food. They are seeking traceability and quality and are willing to pay a premium for it. The U.S. system produces massive volume, prioritizing efficiency and scale, but this comes with regulatory complications, as different countries have varying standards and requirements. The Canadian system, though smaller in scale, is more differentiated and meets niche demands, catering to specific market segments with unique product offerings. In today's market, Canada's careful stewardship of its agricultural resources is giving it a decisive edge, allowing it to capture a growing share of the global corn market. The U.S. must now consider, in light of these shifting dynamics, if its pursuit of yield has come at the cost of market access and long-term sustainability. Canada's edge extends beyond the farm to its regulatory system. The Canadian Grain Commission certifies exports, providing global buyers with trusted guarantees of quality and safety. The identity-preserved system, backed by government and third-party audits, ensures traceability from farm to ship. In the US, inspection focuses more on basic grading, with less emphasis on specialized traits like GMO content. This difference in certification gives Canada a clear advantage in meeting strict import requirements. Buyers trust Canadian documentation, making it easier to secure deals. Canada's investment in quality assurance is now paying off in global markets. The world wants proof, and Canada delivers. The global corn market is being fundamentally reshaped. The US is no longer the only game in town. Canada, Brazil, and Ukraine are rising competitors. The market is fragmenting into specialized niches: standard GMO, premium non-GMO, and trait-specific corn. Suppliers like Canada thrive by serving high-value, low-risk segments. Corn with guarantees of non-GMO or approved traits now commands a price premium. Trade routes are shifting, with buyers willing to pay more for supply chain security. US farmers face tough choices: stick with high-yield GMOs or switch to varieties with better export potential. Competing nations are expanding production to meet new demand. Farmers everywhere must now manage global market risk, not just grow crops. The era of simple commodity trading is over. The financial fallout is massive. For the US, rejected shipments mean hundreds of millions in lost sales and a glut of corn depressing domestic prices. The entire supply chain, farmers, elevators, shippers, feels the pain. There's also a reputational cost. The US is seen as a less reliable supplier, which could hurt future deals. For Canada, it's a windfall. Billion-dollar deals are boosting farm incomes, driving investment, and creating jobs. Farmland values are rising, and the broader economy is benefiting. Canada's success in corn is opening doors for other agricultural exports. The lesson is clear: adapting to global demands brings prosperity. For the US, regaining trust will be costly and time-consuming. For Canada, the future looks bright. Behind the headlines are real farmers. In Iowa, a fourth-generation farmer feels trapped. New GMO seeds promised efficiency, but now threaten his market access and income. Local farmers debate whether to stick with new seeds or revert to older, approved varieties. Many feel caught in a trade battle beyond their control. In Ontario, a non-GMO corn farmer is seeing unprecedented demand and price premiums. He's expanding acreage and investing in storage, while his community thrives. Young people are returning to agriculture and local businesses are booming. For US farmers, uncertainty reigns. For Canadian farmers, quality and traceability have become a winning strategy. The future of farming is being rewritten on both sides of the border. The future of North American corn depends on adaptation. The US must close the regulatory gap with trading partners, seeking synchronized GMO approvals. Long-term, the US may need to adopt identity-preserved systems to serve both GMO and non-GMO markets. This will require investment but could restore resilience and trust. Canada's challenge is to maintain quality and traceability as it scales up. Both countries must innovate and diversify to avoid over-reliance on any single market. Greater cooperation on standards could benefit both nations. The US may dominate high-volume commodity corn, while Canada leads in premium trait-specific markets. The path forward is complex, but those who adapt will thrive in a more diverse, resilient agricultural future. The next chapter for North American corn is just beginning.